Hi friends, Alex Kais here, and this is a home in Seattle. Today I'm at one of our recent listings, which we got an offer on just recently, and I want to talk about what it takes to sell a house. Now, it is very expensive, to be sure, and I'm a realtor and I'm benefiting from some of those costs. But I do think that it's important that you do hire an experienced professional when you go to put your house on the market, because it really ends up being worth it in the end. So I've thought through all of the questions that I've gotten throughout the years on like what the process is, how much it costs, what you do before even thinking about selling your house. And I'm gonna try and answer them here. So let's explore this house a little bit and go over some of these points. Okay, let's just jump right into it and start talking about costs. There are a lot of fees when you sell a house, from broker commissions and taxes and staging and repairs. And ideally, all of these are going to be paid at closing using the equity that you have in your house. Now, it's always good to stay in a house at least, I'd say, 2 years at a minimum, because you might owe capital gains tax if you sell quicker than that. But let's estimate with $1 million price point, because that's kind of the average here in Seattle these days, and go over all of these fees in a little bit more detail. So you are going to owe what's called excise tax when you sell your house. It's kind of like sales tax on property. And in Washington State, in Seattle specifically, it's about 1.78% of the sales price. So, you know, it's kind of a hefty price there. Now, on top of that, if you work with a real estate agent, you're going to owe broker commissions. And I'm not sure what it is around the country, but in Seattle, I usually charge about 6% to sell a house, and that is split between both me and the real estate agent that helps the buyer. So that brings us up to about $75,000. So, I mean, that's a lot of money. And on top of that, I always recommend a few repairs. Just painting the house is a good start. But also, if your kitchen's a little out of date, consider a few little fix-ups. Maybe putting a new countertop in, painting old cabinets. Depending on the market, it could be worth doing a full kitchen renovation before putting your house on the market. All of these repairs will, they'll end up netting you more money in the end. So it might feel a little gut-wrenching to do, $20,000 to $30,000 worth of repairs before you put the house on the market, but that'll translate into much greater returns than that. And to help identify, what you should be doing, I always do what's called a pre-listing inspection, about $600 to $800, depending on the house. You have an inspector come through and they identify all of the problems, and then you can be proactive and address them. And then whatever buyer comes in loses a little bit of negotiation power, because those problems are identified in the beginning and they can't come back and bite you in the end. Now, there's also the cost of staging and marketing to consider. Now, oftentimes this can be negotiated or split with your real estate agent, and I think it's a good way to go. I don't often negotiate on my commission, but I do, kind of go hand in hand with homeowners on a lot of the marketing expenses. So, I will handle paying for a lot of social media ads and, getting the word out. And then sometimes the homeowner will pay for staging, or I split it with them, or I just cover the whole thing. This house here, we ended up spending a lot on staging just because it's a little bit of a higher end home, new construction, standalone in a good neighborhood. It ended up costing about $5,000 to get a living room set and dining room set. We staged the office and the primary bedroom. So a little bit of an expense there, but definitely worth it. And, people coming through the open house were just gushing. The house it looked great. We got it repainted and did a little bit of fix-up projects here and there, but the staging really put it over the top. Now, one of the biggest logistical questions I get is, how do you buy a house before you sell one? And there's no easy answer. It's definitely an inconvenience. It is a little tricky. I'd say the easiest way, and this is something you should talk to your lender about, is getting a bridge loan or using the equity in your house in order to purchase a new one. Then you can move into that new one and then put the old one on the market. That's the easiest. It's probably also the most expensive, just because bridge loans, they have a cost. Another way to do it is to just put your house on the market and then get an Airbnb while there's open houses and showings being held, and then you can move back in while it's pending, and then start shopping when your current house is pending. So there's a little bit of timelines that have to line up in order for that to work, but it's a viable solution. In this pretty hot market, rent backs are pretty common. So a lot of sellers, what they do is just ask for a 30-day rent back. So they sell the house and then become a tenant for 30 days while they go and shop for a new house. So there are options there, and everybody's situation is going to be a little unique. It's a good conversation to have with your real estate agent and your lender together. Now, I feel like most people know what's going on with open houses, but let's just talk about it for a minute. Open houses do not sell houses, usually. It's usually a realtor who is not the listing agent who's hosting it, hoping to, get leads, establish rapport with potential buyers, and, go house hunting with them sometime later. I do think in a hot market, it's a good idea to have an open house, just because things get so busy that you might not be able to get in at the time that you want. If you're trying to book an appointment on a Saturday afternoon, then the open house just makes it available. Now, open houses aren't totally worthless. They do help establish some buzz, maybe get the word out to your neighbors, who then get the word out to some of their friends. But for the most part, open houses don't sell houses. Some of the biggest advantages that comes with hiring an experienced professional is, part of it's just kind of the logistical help. Somebody that's experienced, that's done it before, that just has a routine of how to get a house ready for the market. But also it's someone that knows how to, I don't want to say manipulate, but time the market. And, the market is ever changing. Always wait until the week of to establish a final price for the house, just because things change on a weekly basis, especially in Seattle area. For a few months we had this absolutely insane market, and now it seems like every week it's getting a little bit slower. You have to be really strategic on how you price. So this house, we priced it at $1.4 million. That's what we thought we could get it at. If we had put it on the market, during the really hot season, I would have priced it at maybe $9.99, and it would have gotten bid up to about 1.4. But now, because things were a little bit slower, and I saw open house traffic slowing down and showing traffic slowing down, I thought that we should probably price it right at what we wanted to get, and it worked out with a full price offer with no contingencies, and it was a great offer, and we ended up getting exactly everything that we wanted and what we thought the house was worth. Okay, so I think that kind of covers a lot of the big questions, but let's just go over kind of the process a little bit, like the timeline of how everything happens. So the first thing that you have to do is order title. And for the most part, you bought your house, you know exactly what the history is. But I've talked to people who have lived in their house for 30 years and they've either forgotten or I had a client once who their spouse had passed away, and there was a cloud on title because he was still on title, but he was no longer living. So it was an unfortunate situation, but she had to provide the death certificate in order to remove him and progress smoothly. Then it's time for the pre-listing inspection. Inspector walks through, identifies everything, writes up a comprehensive report, and it's something that you can make available to potential buyers in the hopes that they waive the inspection contingency. Then you address all of those repair items items and invest a little bit of money into the house in order to make it really shine. And then it's time to stage and photograph and do all of the marketing materials. Usually it's kind of a mad rush a week before the house goes on the market in order to get a photographer, a videographer, sometimes a drone pilot, the stager, any last minute handyman projects that might need to be done. And then you set a list price and make it live. I input everything on the multiple listing service, and then it automatically gets pushed out to Redfin, Zillow, all of the consumer search engines. And then, you have open houses, you have showings, you hopefully get a great offer. And then once it's under contract, the buyer has a right to do a walkthrough a few days before closing just to make sure that everything's still kosher. And then you sign paperwork and walk away. This house ended up being very successful. We got an offer in 4 days at asking price with no contingencies. And I mean, that's the goal. Hopefully you get multiple offers, which we did try to get here. The one offer we got had an escalation addendum, so they would have paid more if there were other offers. And we tried to negotiate and try to get somebody else to submit an offer in order to activate that, but unfortunately it was just the one. But we got a very clean offer at what the house is worth. So, in the end, it was a big win. That's it for now. If you're thinking about making a home in Seattle, send me a message and we'll talk more about it. Bye.